All right, Devin, it's high noon. So we start this. We don't want to take too much of anybody's time. So what we want to do is get started. Let you know we are recording this, so the intent is to put this information out following. And I think that it's important for us to get some information on the airport. The airport is one of our most important economic drivers in our community, in any community really, but ours is important to us. And we just want to express our appreciation to Devin Brubaker. He's done a fantastic job, and I think he's been a game changer for how things are done around here. Moving forward, we anticipate some big things coming out of the airport. There's a lot of information that Devin can provide for us, but we have to remember to support our airport, and I think that's the key message that we want to give out as a chamber. That while there are so many economic drivers in our community, the airport is certainly a very important and influential one, and we want to make sure that we're supporting that airport, especially with all the challenges that they face externally. We can change things internally, we can increase our numbers, we can do a lot of things, but there's a lot of outside influences that we just don't have any control over, and we want to make sure that we're giving as much support as we can to our local airport. To me, it's as important as shopping local. Doing what we can to make sure that the flights continue to come in and out of Rock Springs, out of Sweetwater County, and supporting Southwest Wyoming. Devin, you've indicated there's a lot of things. We did recently conduct a survey. We received about 100 responses, wasn't it, JT? About 100 responses that kind of let us know what people are thinking and how they feel about the airport. We shared that information with Devin, and he's very good at responding to information. And so we're going to hear a little bit about what he has to say about that response, but also some of the other challenges that our airport and airports in general are facing nationwide and worldwide. Devin, we really appreciate you being here today. We appreciate everybody for joining us. And like I said, we do have a few people on this call, but there's going to be many more that'll see this as we send out this recording. So if you have questions that maybe don't get answered here or aren't able to ask them of Devin, make sure that you pass those questions on. We can do it through the chamber. You can contact him directly. He's really good at answering questions. So if you have something that on your mind or a statement that you want to make, please let us know or let Devin know, and we will make sure that we get the information to him so he can answer your questions. And I promise you that he will do that because he is good at it. Devin, thanks again for being here. We'll turn the time over to you, and it's your show. You tell us whatever it is you want to share with us.
Awesome. Well, appreciate it, Rick and JT, for the opportunity, and the chamber always being supportive of the airport. It's greatly appreciated. I want to keep this pretty informal, so if anybody has any questions as we go through, I do have a PowerPoint, but I'm going to try not to read to you all. I want to kind of just have a dialogue, and if there's questions, feel free to raise your hand, throw it in the chat, and at a good stopping point in between topics, I'll do my best to answer your questions. So I'm going to try to share my screen. Hopefully this works flawlessly here. So let me know if you can see my PowerPoint.
Yes, I can see it.
Awesome. Perfect. All right. So as Rick said, my name is Devin Brubaker. I'm the airport director here at Southwest Wyoming Regional Airport, just east of Rock Springs. For those of you that have not been up on the hill here, exit 111. So a little bit about our airport. We are a commercial service airport, meaning that we provide commercial service, commercial airline service. Our current flights go to Denver on United Airlines. But what's really important too to us is that we're also a general aviation airport. So while a lot of folks will see the forward-facing air service that they may fly on or utilize, there's a whole nother side of the airport that is even busier and even more of an economic driver to our community, and that's general aviation. And that's everything from cargo to medical evacuation flights to traveling doctors, aerial firefighting. There's a whole list of different types of general aviation that operate out of our airport. On any given year, we do more than 17,000 aircraft operations a year here at the airport. So there's lots of times I'll be in town and people will say, don't you only have like 1 or 2 flights? Why do you have so many employees at the airport? Well, it's because we do have only 1 or 2 commercial flights, but we will see anywhere from another 8 to 12 on a regular basis and as many as 25 to 30 aircraft a day, depending on the time of the year that come in and out of the airport. So we stay quite busy. And I'll talk a little bit more about this here in a future slide, but we are a true economic catalyst to the local community, generating over $37 million of economic impact every single year to Sweetwater County. And we're positioned for growth, and a lot of that has a lot to do with the support of our funding partners at the city, the county, the Wyoming Business Council. Thank you, Kylie. The state of Wyoming Department of Transportation, and the Federal Aviation Administration. So that investment that continues to be made here at the airport is not just about an investment for today, it's an investment for the future and making sure that the airport is ready to support any growth that happens, whether that be in the Trona mines, whether that be happening with our vacant industrial buildings and new businesses coming in or existing businesses expanding their footprint. I spoke about the economic impact. And we have a pretty robust economic impact with over or close to 27,000 visitors that come through the airport each year. 324 jobs are created by the airport, both directly and indirectly. So robust jobs, opportunities in the community created by the airport. Along with that comes almost $11.4 million of payroll. So that's $11.4 million of paychecks going to people in our community, not just here at the airport, but the trickle down that allows that money to continue to cycle through our economy. Total spending here at the airport with construction and operational costs, not just from ourselves, but our tenants, is north of $21 million a year. And that's largely done in the local economy. I was just down at one of our local rental businesses, locally owned rental businesses this morning, buying a trash pump for our operation. And it's those kind of investments that help the economic activity here in our community. We do generate about $1.4 million of tax revenue a year to the state and the local communities. And as I mentioned earlier, almost $37 million of economic impact each year. So everybody asks, how's things going at the airport? And it's usually best to frame it in a pre-pandemic, a pandemic, and a post-pandemic type of mindset. So when we look at our pre-pandemic situation, we grew very rapidly from 2016 to 2019 at a clip of almost 56.7%. During those 3 years, our passenger numbers ballooned significantly. We were poised to add a third daily flight during the summer of 2020. It was actually already up and for sale on United's website. Went on middle of March when the pandemic and the emergency declaration were issued by the president. Our industry basically shut down. Excuse me. And so it really was an eye-opening experience and a very stressful experience to have our business get wiped out overnight. We went from having robust growth to losing basically 97% of our business overnight. And it still creates nightmares, if you will, for me, just thinking about the stress that period caused, because we didn't know what the future held. Also, as part of the pre-pandemic, we were poised to deliver a 40% reduction in operating funding requests to the city and the county. And we were pretty excited about that because we've been working very diligently to drive our funding requests to the city and the county lower and lower each year. And we were poised with some rapid growth we were experiencing to be able to wipe out nearly half of our operational subsidy from the city and the county. We also, during that period, if you remember back to 2018, 2019 timeframe, there was a lot of discussion in the local media about the airport pursuing funding from the federal government to modernize our terminal. We were working with the city and the county to secure funding, if you will, seed money, to be able to do a conceptual design on the project. And it was at that time a concept. It was the thought that there's an opportunity with robust federal funding available in the aviation industry right now. Let's go out there and put ourselves in a good spot where we can be shovel ready and secure as much funding as possible. And we were also in the middle of 10 to 20% of general aviation growth. And general aviation accounts for about 90% of our business in terms of revenue. And so seeing that grow at an annual clip of 10 to 20% was phenomenal. And that really started back in 2018 when we opened up our new general aviation facility, largely with the help of the Wyoming Business Council and the Wyoming Department of Transportation. We were able to build a nearly $6 million facility, and it has completely revolutionized our business model on the general aviation side of the airport, more than we ever expected. I remember in our grant application to the Business Council telling them that I expected to generate about $50,000 a year of revenue in hangar fees. And this fiscal year that we're part of the way through, we will likely hit $300,000 of revenue off of that hangar, which is phenomenally, it's phenomenal. It's better than anything we ever expected. So we're excited for that. It's going to result in us investing even more money in facilities and infrastructure for general aviation. We'll have some new hangar space coming online later this year to help with that growth over at general aviation. So what happened during the pandemic? I mentioned just a bit ago that we lost 97% of our business. It literally went away overnight. We came to work basically Monday, March 16th, 2020. And that was a day that we would have normally had full flights leaving out on the Monday, and they were all empty. There was no passengers. And the month of April, I think the total number of passengers was 64 in the entire month. So we averaged just a hair over 2 passengers a day for the month of April. And so that's pretty devastating when the month of April would have normally been well north of 2,000 passengers in a regular year. So the pandemic resulted in a significant reduction, not just on the commercial aviation side, but also the general aviation side. Obviously, it wiped out our revenue. We went from going into a situation where we were going to deliver that 40% reduction to the city and the county to a situation where we were probably going to need to ask for 40 or 50% more than what we had the previous year from the city and the county. We desperately needed help, and luckily Congress stepped up as part of the CARES Act, CRISA, and ARPA, all 3 programs. Our congressional delegation worked diligently to make sure that there was funding for airports. Even though they voted no on all 3 bills, they worked together with our industry to make sure that there was funding in those bills for airports. So luckily, through those 3 programs, we were granted about $3.2 million over the period of the pandemic, which helped us overcome that loss of revenue, made a big difference for us. We also saw renewed investment in the aviation system from Congress. They continued to invest additional general fund dollars into aviation infrastructure across the country, and really focused on diving into our terminal project and how we might be able to secure the funding to make that happen. And truly industry-wide turmoil. I mentioned it earlier, losing that much of your business basically decimated the airlines, it decimated airports, it decimated general aviation. It had impacts on workforce, had impacts on training, had impacts on reliability. Basically, every component was negatively impacted by the pandemic. And on top of that, last fall, we were hit with vaccine mandates, which had another impact. Luckily, since those were rolled out, there's been some courts that have put those on, have issued injunctions on those. So while we adopted a vaccine mandate here at the airport based on a federal requirement from the executive orders, we've suspended the pursuit of compliance with that due to the injunctions from the court system, which our employees, our contractors, our tenants all very much appreciate. But it's still a real and living threat, as we are considered a federal contractor. and it is still really the one vaccine mandate out there with the health, along with the healthcare vaccine mandate, that still poses a risk to our industry. So where are we going? Well, that's a little fuzzy at this point. There's some things that we do know. There are some things that we don't know. I will start out saying we have continued industry challenges. We started out, 5 years ago, knowing that there was an impending pilot shortage and that it was going to gradually get worse over the course of the decade. We'd see it get worse as we neared 2030, 2035. And that was a combination of the fact that pilots have a mandatory retirement age of 65 for airline pilots. On top of that, there was some congressional changes to the training requirements for pilots as a result of a Colgan Air crash that occurred in Buffalo, New York, a decade ago. And those things were already creating a challenge in trying to find pilots. Well, the pandemic happened. The airlines received some funding from Congress, but one of the requirements was they couldn't lay people off or furlough them. So to be able to cut down on the number of employees they had, their highest paying employees, which are the pilots, they needed to offer voluntary retirement packages, which they offered in robust form. So not only were we losing people at age 65, we weren't onboarding as many new pilots because of the new training requirements. And then we had a bunch of people take the voluntary buyouts, because when the pandemic began, there was a wide consensus that we would not see demand return to 2019 levels till at least 2025. So that occurred. Demand started gradually growing back. We got to the fall of 2021, and we got to within 10% of 2019 numbers across the whole industry. And all of a sudden, the demand was getting closer and closer back to 2019 numbers, and there wasn't enough pilots. Then the holidays hit, and Omicron hit, and it wiped out dozens, hundreds of pilots across all of the airlines, and it truly devastated airline reliability for the first half of January. It was pretty ugly. The airlines quickly realized that because of the pilot shortage and the ongoing Omicron impacts, that they needed to draw down the frequency of flights nationwide. If we went back to the third quarter earnings call for United Airlines, they had told the world that they were going to fly somewhere around 17 to 19% more flights in the first quarter of 2022 than what they did in the first quarter of 2019. Subsequently, they just announced their fourth quarter earnings and whole year earnings, and as part of that announcement, they've announced that they're going to be flying 30% less than what they did in 2019. So they went from thinking they were going to have robust growth in 2022 to robust shrinkage in their network. And we see that almost every single day nationwide, passenger numbers are back to almost 40% down compared to 2019. And that's a combination of some demand challenges due to the pandemic, as well as the fact that there's just not as many flights to choose from due to the lack of available pilots. So it's a dynamic situation. It's changing, I would say, weekly. We meet weekly with SkyWest Airlines, and every update I get is different. I wish I could tell you exactly what the future holds, but one week I'll walk away thinking, oh, there's light at the end of the tunnel, and the tunnel is really short. And then the very next week I'll say, yeah, there's light out there, but it's a real small light and it's really far away. So we really don't know when that is. I will tell you that over the next 20 years, to meet up with the demand for pilots, we need to hire 87 new pilots a day to be able to keep up with the demand nationwide. And that's a big number. As part of all of this, we've had to reinvent our entire industry. You've seen things like United Airlines get rid of change fees, have a new focus on customer service and less of a focus on bottom line, if you will. There's a lot of things that United's doing and other airlines are doing to focus on that customer service aspect. On top of that, we've had to reinvent how we do things like clean our terminals, clean our airplanes, to make sure that they're safe for our traveling public. We've also seen a rapid growth in general aviation over the last several months. What's really interesting is that there's a lot of folks that had enough money to fly commercial, and they would pay for the upgrades to ride first class and so forth. Those individuals are now chartering their own flights or buying their own planes so that they don't have to fly an airline, which is an interesting dynamic. We're seeing numbers that are just unprecedented. One of our largest customers this last year in 2021 saw a 400% increase in business compared to 2019 before the pandemic. And that's just astronomical to even think about, because 2019 was a record year for them. So we're continuing to see that growth on that side of the house, which is great. Coming back to the commercial terminal, I mentioned that pre-pandemic, we were really trying to create a conceptual design, get positioned to be able to secure federal funding. I'm proud to say that we were successful in securing the federal funding, and thanks to the support of the city and the county, planning that seed money back in 2018, 2019 timeframe, it allowed us to secure almost $14 million in federal dollars, $3 million from the Wyoming Business Council, a little over $1.3 million from WYDOT, and then $1.3 million of local dollars from the city and the county and the airport to construct our $20 million commercial terminal modernization project. And the last item that has happened post-pandemic, and you've seen it in the news, it's now called the bill, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, but it was called the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, the IIJA. It included $20 billion of funding for airport infrastructure over a 5-year period. We will be recipients of approximately $5.2 million of that over the next 5 years. There's set things we have to use it on infrastructure here at the airport, and we're working on developing that plan as we speak. So I mentioned some of the challenges that we face in the industry. I thought it was really telling when you look at a couple quotes from Scott Kirby, the CEO of United Airlines. This first one occurred on October 6th, where he said, "We're still debating what the long-term future of 50-seaters really is. We have 50-seaters at all of our airports in the state except for Jackson. The challenge is, do you want to serve places like Erie, Pennsylvania at all, or Cody, Wyoming, or do those places just get cut off the connectivity to the world? We're struggling with that, and we feel some obligation to keep the communities connected, but the economics ultimately aren't going to work, and pilot shortage, as you know, they're getting squeezed." So this was said on October 6th. About a month later, on November 17th, same CEO of United Airlines, "We don't have enough pilots to fly all the airplanes. So the 50-seaters are at the bottom of that pile, and markets that rely on 50-seaters are the ones that are going to lose service." And so it was pretty accurate. Within a matter of days, United, American, and Delta all announced significant flight reductions nationwide on small communities. Over 63 communities across the country have either lost all of their air service or at least 50% of their air service since the fall of 2021. So it's been a true challenge for our industry. What is the airline industry doing to kind of overcome that, or try to overcome that? They're offering insane amounts of money. If you are not getting near 65 and you're looking for a career change, I would highly recommend you look into becoming a pilot, because you can become very wealthy very quickly becoming an airline pilot. Some companies, as you can see on the left there, Envoy, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of American Airlines, they're offering $175,000 signing bonus just to come on board, and their first year pay is north of $150,000 a year. Over at Commute Air, they're offering $50,000 sign-on bonus. PSA, which is a subsidiary of American Airlines, is offering $187,500. And this weekend, SkyWest Airlines announced $40,000 signing bonus for captains. So the industry is working hard, to hire more pilots and get as many pilots in the pipeline as possible. So what does all that mean for us? Well, we're waiting for business travel to return. Our market, our airport, pre-pandemic, we had about 70% of our passengers were business travelers and 30% were leisure. Today, if I had to guess, based on what we see coming through the terminal, we're about 90 to 95% leisure and 5 to 10% business. The problem with that is that leisure travelers tend to pay less than business travelers do for their fares, which is having a severe impact on the profitability of our market. And it's not just our market, it's every market. Business travel has not returned, and we look forward to it eventually coming back, but it has not returned at this point. There's also significant cost increases to maintaining existing air service levels. We're in negotiations with SkyWest Airlines right now for the next 3-year term of air service, and I can tell you that the numbers are not pretty. It will be a significant increase to the state and the local communities moving forward. The final numbers are to be determined, but we're working through that right now. But the numbers are not pretty. And not really looking forward to having to deal with that in the future, but it's the reality of the situation. We have fewer passengers right now. We have fewer flights right now. We have higher fuel costs, and we also have higher costs for the airline to operate, with labor costs, as you saw with the cost of flight crews, maintenance costs. All of those costs are higher today than what they were 3 years ago when we last negotiated the contract. So the other thing is reduced flight schedules for the foreseeable future. Through May 6th, as of now, through May 6th, we will only have a single flight per day. And that's what we're seeing in most communities around the country. Some communities are losing their service entirely, or the airlines are subcontracting out the 50-seat flying to 9-seat aircraft. You'll see some airports in the state over the next couple months transition from 50-seat aircraft to 9-seat aircraft, and that'll happen. And right now, we don't foresee that happening here in Rock Springs, but I do know of at least one community in the state that will be likely making that transition. We continue to see the growth happen on the general aviation side. With all the negative on the commercial side, we're seeing a lot of growth on the general aviation side. So we're continuing to invest in facilities, services, and infrastructure there to keep that revenue flowing to the airport. And as I mentioned earlier, we were recipients of $14 million in federal funding for the terminal. We received $3 million in funding from the feds to build a new maintenance facility for our fleet. And then we had the COVID relief funding, and now we have the infrastructure funding. So in terms of grant funding, it's never been a better time to be at the airport. Unfortunately, each one of those pieces of money is a different color of money, if you will, and each has its own eligibility and strings attached to it that we have to manage, which is becoming quite difficult with the wide array of funding right now. So now that we've talked a little bit about all that, some of the exciting things that have happened over the last year or so, we haven't been out in the community much because of the pandemic. So there's some of these that you may already know about, and there's some that might be news to you. In December of 2020, we opened our new $2 million fuel farm. Up at the top is a picture of our old fuel farm. It was an underground fuel farm with 25,000 gallon jet and 25,000 gallon avgas storage. On the bottom, you'll see our new above ground fuel farm with 60,000 gallons of jet storage capacity, 30,000 of avgas, and 2,000 of diesel, and 2,000 of unleaded. So we were able to withstand during the pandemic, and even this last summer, there was some robust fuel shortages, and nearly every airport in the region, nearly every airport in the region ran out of fuel at least once. And this included Jackson, Bozeman, Gillette, Casper. All of those airports ran out of fuel at least once during the summer. We were the only airport that I'm aware of that did not run short on fuel or did not have to regulate how much fuel we could sell to customers, which helped us because we had people reposition here just to buy fuel because they couldn't get it elsewhere. So it's we didn't think that would ever be a win, if you will, when we built this facility. But it definitely helped us during the pandemic. And Huge shout out to the city of Rock Springs. They worked with us on an innovative financing process to be able to build this facility. And so in partnership with the city, we've been able to get this facility done and be an asset to the airport well into the future. Another item that is new to the airport, it was active last summer, we'll be going into our second summer, is the Bureau of Land Management air tanker base. So we were excited to secure this. We had been working for many years to recruit BLM to move a facility here. Southwest Wyoming didn't have aerial firefighting coverage. We were the only part of the state that did not have resources locally based, and it put us at a significant disadvantage when we had wildland fires anywhere in Southwest Wyoming. So it was really important to us to get the resources closer, and it was also an opportunity to create new revenue in a diverse manner for the airport. So we were fortunate enough to sign a 20-year lease with the Bureau of Land Management for 4 acres of land and 2,500 square foot of office space. And this is the new facility that you see in this aerial photography. Don't pay too much attention to the weird trapezoid around the pond there. That drives me nuts that we didn't get straight fencing installed. I swear I'll go out there and fix that myself one day. But otherwise, the rest of the project has been fantastic. They operated out of here all summer last year, fighting fires all over the region. And it was told to us by pilots and the seat base managers that we have the best seat base in the country in terms of comfort for the pilots and for the crews. And also it was the first in the country built to the modern EPA standards. So we're able to capture all of the retardant that gets leaked throughout the process or washed off the aircraft. It gets collected in that pond and does not make it to the stormwater. So we're pretty excited to be the first in the country that has the modern seat base. And I mentioned earlier about the coverage. If you look at this map, you'll see where Southwest Wyoming Regional Airport is there in the southwest corner. And you'll notice that if you take that circle away, there's this big void of coverage in the southwest part of the state where we didn't have air tanker coverage. And that was even more so because they shut down Vernal and Craig. So they closed Vernal and Craig, and that left a huge void, northern Utah, northern Colorado, and southwestern Wyoming. So we were excited to secure this. Unfortunately for the community of Rollins, we, for lack of better terms, stole it from them. The seat base was in Rollins, and we were able to recruit them away from Rollins to come over here, which was a better fit for them anyway to provide that coverage in southwest Wyoming. Another project, this is actually, I should have taken a new picture here this week because this project is just days away from completion. But this was a $5.13 million new fleet maintenance and storage facility. The airport is required to store all of our fleet in a heated facility. The FAA requires us to keep all of our equipment out of the weather and out of the elements. So this project here is about 24,000 square feet of space that will allow us to store all of our fleet and also perform maintenance on our fleet. Currently, we don't have a maintenance bay, so we're pretty excited to have this maintenance bay to be able to do the work that we need to. So we are, like I said, a matter of days away from substantial completion on this project, and we'll be moving in likely sometime in March. So we're pretty excited for that. And I mentioned robust general aviation growth. It continues this winter. Just another picture of our hangar that the Business Council helped us fund, full of heavy metal. This picture alone, you have north of $400 million worth of aircraft parked in that hangar in one night. And we do this on a regular basis. This isn't, oh my goodness, we got a picture. This has happened once a year. This is on a regular basis. We'll put anywhere from 5 to 11 corporate jets in the hangar a night. So we're pretty excited for that. And then what everybody else really wants to know about is the commercial terminal. I think we're well on our way. We got construction underway. You can kind of see this overlay of the expansion. You see the existing building and the expansion on both the west side and the east side. This picture shows them pouring the footers on the east side expansion. When the project's done, it will double the size of our existing terminal. It'll bring our building up to ADA compliance. It'll improve the energy efficiency of the building. It's going to improve the customer experience, everything from the screening process to the waiting for a flight to being able to charge your phone with USB charging outlets that you find at larger airports. We'll have an Arts in the Airport program. We're going to have museum displays for our local museums to tell our history of the community. We're also going to have food and beverages on both sides of the checkpoint with our micro markets. So we're pretty excited about that and the partnership we have with Western Wyoming Beverage to deliver those to our customers. There's a whole other set of advantages to this project that are behind the scenes with all new building systems. We'll have fire suppression. Right now, we have no fire suppression in the building, so we'll have fire suppression in the building. There will be quite a few other advantages to customers. When the project's done, most people won't even recognize the existing building. We're going to keep the existing building, but it's going to be largely gutted and renovated as part of the project. And they're actually going to start the gutting process a week from today. So we're both excited and a little nervous for that, but that starts a week from today. So I already mentioned earlier the funding breakdown. The initial project cost was $19.51 million. We have seen some significant cost escalations over the course of the project. So we're now near $20.5 million on the project, and we're working with our funding partners at the Business Council, the YDOT Aeronautics, and the FAA to secure the funding necessary to keep the project going. We're working with our local legislators. There was a proposal to use ARPA funds from the governor for $10 million to the Business Council. The Appropriations Committee did not include that, but hearing over the last 24 hours that there's an amendment forthcoming from some legislators to get that funding back in the ARPA bill, which is the funding that the state received from the federal government. So pretty excited for that, hoping that happens, and we'll keep working with our legislators to hopefully see that through. So a lot of people ask why we're doing the project. For any of you that have been in our terminal, the picture on the left is a picture of our hold room currently when we have a full flight. You see people sitting on tables. You see people. There's a lady in that green sweater right up front there, kind of huddled up because there's people so close to her. There's just not a lot of space. So we definitely needed more space. We needed it before the pandemic, and now with people wanting to have a little extra breathing room, it's definitely needed more so than ever. The top right picture is the lobby. For those of you who've been in there, just still stuck back in the 1970s from when the building was built. Doesn't really provide a good gateway for our visitors coming to our community. And it's really important that we present ourselves in a manner that we want to be presented for our tourists and our business leaders that come to visit our communities. It's really important. And then as you talk about Curbside Appeal, if you look at the bottom right picture, that's the existing building. I call it the Cold War era bunker. We're excited to get rid of the canopy on the front. That whole canopy will come down, and we'll have new modern canopies along the whole front of the building. And as I said, you'll see in the renderings here shortly that things will look a lot different. I will point you to recognize all three of these pictures. There will be a rendering that kind of, not maybe from the same exact vantage point, but of the general area that I'll show you here next. Well, I'll show you the floor plan first. So the white area is the existing building. The greenish blue area is the expansions. So you'll see the new holder room in the east expansion, a baggage claim in the east expansion. On the west expansion, we'll be moving the airport admin offices out of the existing building, and we'll have the outbound baggage on the west expansion as well. So as we get into the renderings, here you are. So the top rendering is from the parking lot, and that is the existing building and the additions. It's hard to tell that where the old building is and the new building is. They all blend together, and that was a goal of design, is to combine them. On the bottom picture, that large glass wall you see there, that'll be the hold room. So when you go through the checkpoint, you'll enter a large space that overlooks Aspen Mountain. and the airfield, and will really be a nice welcoming spot. There's going to be a special surprise. Well, it's not really a surprise, but a special addition to the hold room. 2 years ago, we replaced our 1940s rotating beacon for the airport, and we saved that beacon, and it's going to be installed in the middle of the hold room. So we're really excited for that. Our friends over at Infinity Power and Controls, Bruce Pivick and his gang, have volunteered to relamp that fixture with some LED lights. So depending on the season and the year, we're going to be able to light up that beacon inside the terminal. And while I'm talking about Infinity Power and Controls and Bruce Pivick, they are also going to be relamping our 1930s hangar lights that we saved out of our original hangar. They're going to relamp those, and those will be installed in this terminal as well. So we're pretty excited to keep our history alive by installing those in the new building. So this is the lobby. If you remember that picture of the lobby from the previous slides, this will be the new lobby. Looking all the way down from ticketing towards baggage claim. You'll see we have gabion walls. We got a nice roofing system. We have a lot more daylight coming into the building. We have tile flooring, just new, pretty much new everything. So we're pretty excited for that. This is the hold room rendering. So a lot more daylight, a lot more space for people to spread out. This is designed to support 132 people. Our current hold room can barely support 47. So we're excited to have that extra space for passengers. We will have a micro market. They don't have imagery for micro markets, so they have vending machines here, but there will be a micro market with fresh salads and sandwiches and drinks, and also just little gifts for people that need to buy something to take something home to the family. So another great addition there. And this is the baggage claim area, rental cars off to the left. You'll be able to look through to the hold room through the glass wall there, and then we'll have a real conveyor, baggage conveyor, bringing your luggage to you instead of the weird stainless steel slides we have today. So a lot of exciting things to be, or a lot of things to be excited for as we move into this building. Current completion by contract is December 16th of this year. They seem to think they're still going to get done by then. I have doubts. So we'll see how it shakes out. But contractually, they have substantial completion December 16th, 2022. So that is the end of my presentation. I do want to share a video, though, if I can, real quick. And this is a video that I made a couple weeks ago. And it has to do with the fact that due to the reduced flight schedules nationwide, when you book a flight today or go to book a flight on United.com, you may get an error telling you that there's no flights available. And largely that's usually not correct. Unless the flight is truly sold out, it's because United Airlines has an algorithm that won't let flights that have a longer than 3-hour layover show as a result when you search for flights. So I created a video on how to bypass that. So if I can, I would like to try to play this video. I'm hoping it will work. It's on our Facebook page as well. Can you guys see the video screen there? All right, we'll see if the audio works. Today we're going to talk about using the United Airlines multi-city booking tool to make a reservation. Due to the ongoing industry-wide flight schedule reductions, when searching for flights on the United Airlines website or mobile app, customers may get messages saying that flights are not available for their selected destination and/or dates of travel. Oftentimes, this is due to a booking algorithm United uses to ensure that customers do not have a longer than 3-hour layover on their trip. Prior to the pandemic, this was not necessarily an issue, as there were many more flights and shorter layovers. To overcome this, customers can usually still find flights using the multi-city flight search feature. You will begin by going to United.com. You'll enter your origination. In this case, it'll be Rock Springs. And your destination. In this case, it'll be Billings, Montana. You enter your dates of departure and your return. Then you click Find Flights. In this situation, it says that there's no flights. When you see this screen, you can bypass that and click it Search. And then click Multi-City. You'll make sure your first destination is Rock Springs, Denver. And then Denver to Billings on the same day, January 28th. And then you would do Billings right here to Denver on your return date. And then Denver to Rock Springs on the same day as your return date. You then scroll down and click Find Flights. From this point on, it is like their booking process. Select your flights for each leg of the trip. The first one was from Rock Springs to Denver. This one is Denver to Billings. This one will be Billings for Denver. And then this one will be the Denver to Rock Springs. And once that is finalized, we'll probably get total cost. This is where you continue with this. So you'll see the total cost for that round trip, looking Multi-City to Billings, is $397.20. You have an opportunity to add the packages you would like. That you will continue to finish your purchase. Now that we have shown you how to do this live, we want to provide you screenshots that show both the website and the. So I'll stop it there. Sorry, my voice. I hate hearing myself on recordings like that, but there was no video that existed anywhere, YouTube or anything, that showed how to do this. And not only can you use this to bypass situations when you have, it says that there's no flights available, you can also sometimes do this to save money, because sometimes booking it as a multi-city trip will actually save you some money. So I just wanted to share that with you. It's on our Facebook page if you ever want to go back and check it out. It's up there, and we're sharing it about every 2 weeks just to get it out there, because it happens regularly. People get that message that says there's no flights available, and most people will just stop and they'll go and say, okay, I'll fly to Salt Lake then, instead of continuing that next step of looking beyond. So with that, I don't really have anything else for you all. I'm happy to have any open dialogue or answer any questions you guys have. Anything airport, anything air service, anything industry. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Hey, Devin, regarding the airline pilots situation, as those salaries increase and when they're trying to bring in and recruit new pilots, where does the funding for that come? Is that passed on to the consumer? Is that how you anticipate that playing out?
Absolutely. It's no different than when fuel costs go up. It gets passed on to the customer. In our case, it's going to get passed on to the state and the local communities in our minimum revenue guarantee. So we're going to see it there. And so you're going to see airfares. Right now, they're somewhat low industry-wide, but you're going to see airfares increase nationwide. It's likely to occur. And that will be accelerated with today's announcement of the Spirit Airlines and Frontier Airlines merger. If that gets passed or approved by the powers that be in Washington, it takes two low-cost carriers and consolidates them down to one. Obviously, you get a much lower level of service when you fly on one of those carriers, but it's going to have an impact on less competition, which is going to cause fares to increase as well.
That's what I figured. Any other questions for Devin? Well, thanks. I wish I would have had that tutorial a few weeks ago. I found out that I fly out of Rock Springs.
Well, now you have it for the next time. And if anybody ever has any questions, feel free to reach out to me. you can just email me, dbrubaker@flyrks.com. You can call the airport. You can send us a message on Facebook. We respond to all of those, and happy to answer questions. I was at the UPS store this morning, and a customer stopped and said, "Hey, I'm trying to go to Vegas these dates, and the fares are just ungodly high. Can you check on it?" And right away, I've got some calls into our airline partners, because during that period, it looked like the fares were quite high to almost every destination. So I got to call into our airline partners. I don't have control over it, but sometimes when they make a algorithm change on their end, it has unintended consequences on the smaller markets. And sometimes we just have to remind them that, hey, you need to go back in there and change this so that our fares are back in check with where they belong. So feedback is always great. That's one of the things that I didn't hit on is when you book or you're looking for a flight, if you come across something that's keeping you from flying local, whether it's schedule, whether it's the destinations aren't available, or it's the fares, shoot me a message and let me know about it. Let me know the day you tried to book, the dates of your trip that you're trying to take, and how much it cost you to fly out of Rock Springs versus Salt Lake, or the scheduling issues, because I can use that data to go back to the airline and say, hey, we lost these passengers because of these issues. So that feedback helps. I see it when I book a flight, but I don't look at flights as often as the entire population will. So getting that feedback really helps me.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Devin. We really appreciate everything you do and for today's presentation. Like I said, if there's any questions, or if anyone has any comments, Devin's always open and receptive to messages. So thanks, Devin. We look forward to having you at our luncheon in March, I believe.
Yep, and I believe that's correct.
I think we're going to do a follow-up with this, and look forward to hearing from you then. So thank you, everyone, for attending. Have a great day.
Thank you.